Welcome to Let's Relieve Regret, the uplifting podcast where we talk about how to relieve what you're worrying about.
It can feel so good to finally let go. Let go of past hurts, let go of old grudges, let go of self-doubt, self-shame.
The thing is, we aren't always given the tools to let go. We're told to get over it, or it's time to move on. But how do we do that?
We will share our stories, tools, and strategies of how we let go to help you let go.
Let's begin. All right, welcome everybody to the Let's Relieve Regret podcast. My name is Victoria Muir-Bercia, and I'm one of your co-hosts, and I'm joined today by my other co-host,
Shadoe Ball.
And we also have a guest today. Yay. We're joined by Kathy Baldwin today, a fellow Canadian. Kathy is renowned for her groundbreaking work in stress mastery and body and mind alignment. She is the author of the influential book Unlearn the Crap. It's about personal success and empowerment. I'm halfway through reading it and I'm super, super enjoying it. So I'm so excited to talk about it. She specializes in uncovering and unlearning the crap that leads to stress, disease, and burnout. She offers a unique approach that challenges conventional beliefs in the medical system. You're in the right spot. We're going to have a great conversation. She uses the latest science-backed methods. She demonstrates that removing the barriers in your life is faster and easier than we traditionally believed. Her expertise lies in helping clients dismantle obstacles, providing them with the necessary resources to live a life filled with peace, passion, purpose, and prosperity. And in these volatile times, her guidance empowers individuals to navigate their personal journeys with confidence and clarity. I met Kathy in a working group for women leaders in kind of this industry, and we immediately connected and aligned. So I'm so excited about having Kathy here and having a great conversation around our regrets today. So welcome, Kathy. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, we're so lucky. So why don't we start with our check-ins? How's everybody feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10? Shadoe, how are you feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10?
I gotta bring it pretty high. I think an 8 to 8.5 today for me. So on our previous episode, I mentioned that Gertie had a little injury. We had her x-rayed. We had a second opinion. Like we have really done the work to find out that she just needs a lot more rest. We thought she would need surgery. There is one final step to make sure that she absolutely doesn't. But right now we're looking at 90% sure she just needs to be on rest for the rest of the fall and winter, and then next spring we might be able to start playing fetch again and things like that. So feeling pretty hopeful that she won't need surgery.
What a relief. It's the worst when your pets are injured and you're it's kind of twofold. You're thinking about you want them to get better, and then you're also thinking about what's the vet bill going to be. Right.
Yeah.
So it's worst.
We have
it's
insurance.
Like the worst either way.
We were looking at it. We have insurance. We were okay with whatever option we needed. And actually the most interesting thing came out of that. When we went to her first vet and did the x-rays, the vet had an opinion, but then they also said that they sent the x-rays to AI and that AI had a different opinion.
How interesting.
Yeah, totally. And then just this week we had our second opinion appointment, and I didn't even tell her about the AI disagreeing with the first vet, and she agreed with the AI.
Whoa.
So, it's kind of spooky because not again, everything, of course AI is not perfect and human beings aren't perfect and everything else. It's just a very spooky kind of thing to consider.
It's very eye-opening, this is the world we're living in now, and you've just gone through that real life experience of this is the world we're living in.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Victoria? How are you? Scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna give myself an 8 today. Yesterday I wasn't though. Yesterday I was a 6. I had 2 naps yesterday. I had a 40-minute nap in the morning and an hour nap in the afternoon. And I know I talk about this a lot on the podcast every year, everybody, but it's I'm in denial every year. So I have really bad seasonal affective disorder, Kathy. And yesterday was the day it set in, right? I was like, why am I so tired? I couldn't function. I was like at the computer and my head was like dropping. And I was like, okay, I have to have a nap. And so I gave myself that day, because every year I'm kind of like, I'm going to beat it this year. But you don't say, like, I'm going to beat my broken leg. Like, you let your broken leg heal, or right. And this is something that I have every year. And so last winter, I made the decision to lean into it, in terms of, I'm going to make my schedule different in the winter than it is in the summer. If I need to sleep in till 9:30 in the morning, I'm not going to schedule any clients till after 11 or whatever. Right. And so, feeling pretty great. It's been really warm weather up until this point, which has nothing to do with it. It's all about the daylight. But every year we think, oh, maybe the sun will set later this year. It's not. It's science. It's always gonna like get darker the same amount of time on the same day. Like, by the time we hit December 21st, the sun's gonna be setting at 4:30. It's not gonna change. But somehow in our brain we like trick ourselves, right? So, but I feel a lot better today, in just kind of having that day yesterday to let myself rest, and also be like, okay, it's time, Victoria, time to start changing the rhythm of your life to what the rhythm of your life is in the darker days. So I'm 8 yesterday, but I was definitely a 6. I mean, I'm 8 today, but I was definitely a 6 yesterday. So.
Yeah.
Kathy, how are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10?
Today I'm a 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, today is a freaking amazing day, which is funny because yesterday would maybe have been a 1 or a 2. I was an emotional mess yesterday. I couldn't stop crying. A lot of purging was coming out, and even though I have committed to being alcohol free and I haven't had a drink in 4 months, it was yesterday. Let's go. I want a glass of wine. So we went to a fantastic barbecue restaurant, and I had my glass of wine, and I slept horribly last night. Which I know is because I had the wine, right? After 4 months being alcohol free. So the fact that today was like a complete reversal of yesterday just feels so good.
Did you feel guilty? Can I ask a curious question?
Yeah, ask me anything.
Did you feel guilty after you had the wine?
I did not feel guilty.
That's
no. I enjoyed it. It was delicious. I did not give up alcohol because I don't like it. Did I know that I was choosing it because I was having a bad day and I wanted that comfort of something that used to be really comforting at the end of my day?
Yeah.
Did I know that I was playing into a weakness? Yeah, but I gave myself grace.
Yeah. Oh, I like how you say grace. I usually say I give myself permission, but give yourself grace too. Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's okay. We're going to have the best conversation. I'm so excited. Causes for applauses. I mean, we've already kind of said some, but any causes for applauses?
Yeah, actually I saw 2 friends this week that I haven't seen in months, and on 2 separate occasions, and for both of them they're just like, some of your friends, and some friends are draining and some friends really fill you up. Both of these friends really fill me up. So like I'm feeling like very bubbly again, and just like uplifted from seeing these 2 people. One was on Wednesday, one was on Thursday. And just, I don't know, just really, really nice to have those people in your life and appreciate them. So that's my cause for applause this week.
That's a great cause for applause. Hi, Shadoe friends. You know who you are. Do you have a cause for applause, Kathy?
I have so many, but I'm going to start with why I'm a 10 today. I had a call right before meeting you guys here today, and she brought forth everything that I believe about being in alignment with the universe. And so I never know when I'm getting on calls with potential clients where it's going to go. But when everything lines up, and it was right before I knew I was having this conversation with you, and my happy tail was wagging because the universe It was like what was saying yesterday, all of those things that were I was purging, and the crying and the frustration, and all these
You
natural
were
human.
making space.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so to wake up in the morning and have the universe go, you did good, girl, Kathy. You did good. And look where it brought you. It was just such an affirmation of alignment. It was just, yeah.
What a great cause for applause, and to have the self-awareness to to recognize that, right? Often when I'm working with my clients too, it's we have to move through the emotions. It's okay. It's okay to have a day where you're crying. It's okay to lean into those heavier emotions. As you know, I don't call them negative or positive. I call them heavy or light. To lean into those heavier emotions, we learn from them, we clear ourselves through them, we clean ourselves out, and then to be aware of what happens after that clearing. And then you get to choose what to fill the space with. And you're filling it with some good stuff, or you're open to whatever you called in or whatever is going to come and fill that space. Right. So I don't know if I can top that cause for applause. I think that's a really good cause for applause. I'm just going to keep mine simple, everybody. Check out my Instagram if you haven't recently. I haven't dyed my hair purple in probably 2 years. And I always feel better when my hair is purple. I know sounds a bit ridiculous. In the summertime, a bunch of my clients and a bunch of my members, we were having a class. I had about, I don't know, 15 or 20 members on the call. And somehow my purple hair came up. One of the members was like, why is your hair not purple anymore? And then all of a sudden it started happening. And like, I just kept getting reminders. I was like, I don't think I'm going to do it anymore. And then that week, my barista, shout out Ben at the coffee shop I go to every day, was like, yeah, I see you with your purple hair. And so I actually do feel more like myself with my purple hair. Purple is my power color. If you want to see what it looks like, everybody go to our Instagram. We'll post some pictures. But yeah, simple cause for applause for me is that I've done something to feel good about myself. Yeah, well, you're right. It's not simple. And one of the things that I made a post about it on the myrecreo.health Instagram, and I'll post it up on the Let's Relieve Regret Instagram too. As I said, I know the rhythm of my year, and I know that in the fall and late fall is when I start to feel really groggy, brain foggy, maybe pain in my body. My body doesn't recover as much from workouts, and I know that that's the seasonal affective disorder setting in. I feel a little bit lethargic, maybe a little unmotivated, and so I always dye my hair purple in the fall. And I didn't do a full dye last fall, so it's been 2 years. I just did my tips last year, so this was a full purple hair dye. And I do it because I know the rhythm of my life, and I know that I need something to kind of start the darkness. And by darkness, I literally mean the darkness, everybody, the sun setting earlier and rising later, like start the dark hours or the dark time of year for me with something for me. And so dyeing my hair purple is that self-care moment for me, or self-love moment, or self-empowering moment for me. And I guess my message is it doesn't have to be something really complicated for self-empowerment or self-love. It can just be something really simple if you know the rhythm of your life and the rhythm of what you need or what your needs and wants are. And it can literally be something like I dyed my hair. And so for me, I always dye my hair in October. So my hair's purple. Purple is my power color, and I feel better.
That's really great. It's so funny. I love that you're talking about the sun setting, because I have a really beautiful western facing view. And so not only does the sun's time change, the position changes. Right. So around this time of year, the sun goes behind this one building, which creates this really intense like laser into my apartment. So we have to close all the blinds for like the 10 minutes that it's there, and then like open them back up because we want to watch the sunset. Recently, something I've discovered is that if you can make sure that that part's over, again, during just this time of year, when the sun then moves to the next building, it shines that same laser onto the Horses Coliseum of Exhibition Place.
Oh, yeah.
And so it looks like the top part is all lit up from the inside. And I remember the first time I noticed it being like, wow, I don't think I've ever noticed that that lights up at night. And then Ben and I have been watching it, and the more often we watch it, it doesn't light up. It's that the sun hits it at like for like
Oh, you thought it
10
was like
minutes each
lights.
night. Like 10 minutes each night, we see this really beautiful like effect on like the BMO field and the X and everything. And it's just like this thing where like during the day my view is great, but you don't get that little sliver of like beauty. And it only happens in the fall. I don't know, like because of the sun position. So that's also just like a really nice kind of surprise every fall that I'm like, oh right, this is the time of year that it lights up over there. So
How great, right? We often move into this place in the fall. I know we have Australian listeners. I know we have listeners in
yes,
in
true.
other parts of the world too. So I know our Australian listeners, it's the opposite. I know you're going into summer right now, but there's this thing that happens for those of us in North America that naturally give up a little bit in the fall, or because it's darker times, we stop seeing the everyday simple things. It's just what happens in our brain. And it's because we're like mammals and we're prepping, right? We're
Yeah.
prepping for hibernation and stuff like that. But to be able to still see those like everyday ordinary things is a really good practice, especially this time of year. And you're noticing the rhythm of your year too, right? Because you're like, every year I get to see this, but only see it in the fall. That's
Yeah.
magic. It's magic. It's good. I love that.
So I live on the penthouse of my building, and it's fantastic. And so there's nothing that impedes my view.
Wow.
But in the fall, when we generally, I'm not a good morning person. So
Same.
when the sun is coming up, it's later, it's my time.
Yeah.
And I get the most beautiful sunrises to wake up, and I get out of bed, and the first thing I see is the glow of the sunrise. And it's like, thank you. Thank you for this incredible artwork that Mother Nature is giving us.
Yeah.
Sunrises in the fall are amazing.
Yeah. I love that you said a performance, because like last night when, we closed the blinds for that 10 minutes and then we reopened them, and I immediately said, oh, the sky's just putting on a show tonight. And I felt like so like old for a second, but also just like really calm and like, just enjoying it. So
I'm embracing it. I'm embracing my aging and all the things that come along with it.
Well, it's a privilege, right? Like a lot of people, we've talked about this before, like a lot of people don't get the privilege of aging. So we should enjoy it when we see it.
And not judge ourselves for the things that we start to enjoy.
Try very, very hard not to, because it's still going to come up, and like that's just natural too. So anyway.
Are you ready to share your regrets, Shadoe?
I think so.
Okay, Shadoe's going to go first. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay. So I have an experience I need to let go of in order to move forward. And that is, I regret believing in the adage, bloom where you're planted. A few years ago, I got a pen in a nice, beautiful set from Indigo, and they all had cute little sayings on them. And one of the sayings on one of the pens was bloom where you're planted. And I thought it was really beautiful. And I thought, oh, wow, this is like a really good reminder that no matter where you are, you can bloom. You can really like force yourself to be something, even if you don't have the place you're at. But recently, I've learned that some people are orchids and they need a very specific environment in order to bloom. And that has been a game changer for me, because I was really holding on to this idea. I was really holding on to this idea that like I just need to work harder. It's not, and I'm not trying to like blame my environment, because my environment is also controlled by myself. But I really, really held on to, like, not only did I have the pen, I like wrote it on a Post-it note. I had it as my background on my computer screen. I really, really believed in this idea of bloom where you're planted. So the consequences of holding on to this idea is that I became really hyper independent. I didn't ask for help because it's not up to the outside world. It's up to me to bloom, even if I don't have the right environment to do so. So I need to forgive myself for falling into that hyper independence mode. Because again, when I got it, it was like the first year of COVID. A lot of other things were changing. And again, I really wanted to take more responsibility for myself. So I understand why I was attracted to such a simple adage. But what I need to do is throw that away. I need to just completely throw it away because I need to recognize that I am an orchid. And that means I need a very specific light, very specific foundation, a very specific pot to grow in. And so I'll say I did everything I could with the tools I had at the time that I received this adage, piece of advice, whatever you want to call it. And that's okay. That is who I was. And I'm currently growing in a lot of ways. I am excited to embrace an orchid personality and capable of watering my own garden and asking for help for that garden as well. So that's it. It's a shorter, simpler one today, but it's something that has really represented a big internal shift. So wanted to share it with both of you today.
Do you want feedback or do you just want to be heard?
I could take some feedback on this one.
Yeah, I think it's Kathy, I'm really interested to hear what your feedback's going to be because I love that you just said it's a shorter, simpler one because I might be about to just open a can of worms right here.
Yeah. Worms for the fertilizer
Worms
of my garden.
for the, yeah, let's just keep going with this metaphor.
Yeah.
Right. There's two kind of things that came up for me. First of all, I love the idea of the orchid. Shadoe, you always have this amazing way of finding metaphors or like pictures for our lives in order for us to understand how to be self-aware. So I want to thank
don't
you
want
for
to interrupt
that.
you, but I have to. I didn't come up with it.
I know you didn't, but
Yeah,
you're
but
bringing it to us, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you're bringing it to us.
Great.
Two things. One is this idea that our environment will change us. But you know, the saying like, wherever I go, there I am. Right. So some people are like, if I pick up and I move somewhere, then I'll completely change my life, but you're still stuck with you. But the bigger thing that came up for me is understanding. And this is where this is in Kathy's book, everybody. I've already read this part of your book, Unlearn the Crap, our values and our beliefs and our boundaries. And so we can get attracted to a quote or attracted to a belief or attracted to something in our life. And we hold on to that too long and it starts to kind of shape our boundaries or we lose our identity. Right. And so Kathy, in your book, there was a line that I actually highlighted when I was reading it was like, if your identity is your job, who are you when you retire? I think this kind of goes in there in terms of you kind of attached onto this quote and this idea, but it was actually dragging you down and it prevented you from kind of having a relationship with yourself almost.
Yeah, I think it ended up becoming something where I then became really focused on, okay, I did something wrong here. If I'm not growing, if I'm not thriving, I've done something wrong. It's not that my apartment's too small or I can't listen to music during the day or I don't have the things I need to thrive. I was just like, you just need to, again, it's that bootstraps mentality. Like, I just gotta do it.
Yeah, I don't need help. I can do it on my own.
Yeah,
I can
and I
figure
think
out how to
that's
do this on my own.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think that's where I took this quote versus like just, the idea that like wherever you are, you can be you. Like that's where it should have gone. But for me, I internalized it to this idea of like, okay, well, I'm fixed in place and I still need to be my best self, even though I'm not getting what I need.
Yeah,
Which
it's
is
also like
probably the opposite of what they wanted to convey with that quote.
like a kindness to yourself, right? Like we can end up being really hard on ourselves and you actually stopped being kind to yourself or like caring for yourself because okay, this is so interesting. And Kathy's like bouncing in her chair, so I'm going to pass it to you in a second, Kathy. It's so interesting too, because as you know, every year in January, I kind of do a workshop. I do a free workshop. And it's the anti-resolution workshop because I don't believe in like New Year's resolutions, because this is often what can happen is we set like a theme or a resolution and then we fail. And so you like kind of fixated on this quote and then we fail and then we were hard on ourselves. And like, what can we do to actually motivate ourselves and understand ourselves and keep growing and moving forward? And often this idea of like resolutions or goals that aren't set properly, or having a quote that's like, I followed this is my favorite quote. It's been my favorite quote for 20 years, but I'm not the same person I was 20 years ago. I'm not the same person I was 5 minutes ago. Right. And so it's more about like, how do we tap into ourselves and really understand I don't know, what's driving us, what's really going on behind the doors, what's really going on in our brain and our subconscious and our limiting beliefs. And so this is an interesting one, Shadoe. Kathy, what do you think?
You're right. I've been bouncing in my seat because this is exactly what I talk about in my book and how I work with clients, is the universal law of relativity. And the universal law of relativity is basically perspective. And so this quote came to you for a lesson. It came to you for a reason, but you may have thought that it was a literal reason that to accept the location and accept the circumstances. But what it was an opportunity to see yourself through this perspective and actually see who you were, and to realize, I am an orchid. I do require these conditions. This is where I thrive. And now I have the self-awareness to create this for myself. You got what you needed from this quote. It just didn't come to you the way you thought it was going to.
Oh, that's a beautiful reframe, Kathy. Thank you. Because I was even like beating myself up. Like when I heard the orchids thing, this was about 2 weeks ago that I heard that some people are orchids, and I almost immediately dismissed it. I was like, yes, we're all special snowflakes. We all need our special little blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, okay, why is that my knee-jerk reaction to the idea that some people are orchids? Like, why, what is this? And then again, with my ADHD, so many things are just percolating, circulating all the time through my brain, and connections just kind of spring up where they will. And when I made this connection, I was like, oh my gosh, I am upset about hearing that some people are orchids because I myself am one. And I don't want to accept that as an identity, because I have this identity that I've got grit. I can do anything. I can just do it. But I've been struggling with being able to do things that, not only things that I don't enjoy, but even things I enjoy have been tough lately. And again, it's because I've created an environment where I'm a dead little stick. I'm not blooming. I wasn't changing any conditions other than just kind of being like, hey, stick, start blooming.
Would you also say it's like it's not just the environment, it's the identity that you're hanging on to. Right? Like that, like we've talked about this before, like growing up in Northern Ontario is a different thing.
Yeah.
Like it's a different
absolutely.
culture in Northern Ontario, right?
Yeah.
And so this identity of independence and this identity of I can do it on my own and I don't need to ask for help. But that's the identity of who you were, like 20 years ago? Like it can change, right? Like who are you now?
And it wasn't even true then, right? It was just something I like kind of attracted myself to. So and I'll actually just maybe I'll put her link in our show notes. But the person who introduced me to this idea is an ADHD coach named Karen McGill. She has a YouTube channel. I've been really enjoying her content. She's really, really cool.
And she's the one that gave you this
idea of the orchid. I like, some people are orchids, and it was funny because like I've been watching her stuff for a while and I've been really liking it, and then when I heard this thing where some people are orchids, I immediately was like, oh, maybe this one isn't for me. And that's a response I need to start digging and like really challenging myself on, because it's usually when my reaction is, oh, that's wrong, or that's dumb, or that's whatever, that's usually the thing I need to hear most. Is something I'm starting to recognize in my own, like, responses to things, is that usually when it's something where I'm like, oh, that's awful, I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
There's like two sayings that I've like kind of heard or kind of go by on that, and that I kind of teach you, is resistance is a path to change. So whenever you do feel that resistance, for me, it's like, this is something I should explore. Like, why am I resisting this? And the other one is, I don't know if you ever heard this one. Often when you're mad at someone or something, it's because you're actually it's actually mirroring something in yourself that you're actually mad at yourself about. Right? You're like, I
Truly.
don't want to be the orchid, because it's challenging your like belief in yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I thought I was blooming in place.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this
yeah.
idea, and then it's challenged and you're intrigued by the challenge, but the brain doesn't like to change.
True.
Right. Like, as soon as there's any kind of change, the brain is like, I don't want to do that. And Kathy, I know you're good with brain stuff too, so jump in anytime. But the brain is like, anytime you change, it burns a lot of calories, and the brain's like job is to not burn calories. Like,
Right.
it wants to be lazy. So as soon as like even a thought pattern changes, your ego or the brain steps in and goes, nope, I'm going to resist that. And then we have to have the self-awareness to be like, no, wait a minute. I want to explore that. Because I know that resistance is just literally my like primal brain trying to help me survive. But it's actually not going to help me survive, because I actually need to survive emotionally here. I need to have good emotional health and good self-awareness. So the brain is trying to prevent me from change and burning calories and growing new neural pathways, but that actually isn't going to help me survive, because this isn't cave person times. This is modern society, and like our emotional health is more important, now, when we were cave people.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kathy?
What I think is, this is the absolute amazing, perfect example, Shadoe, of exactly what I talk about in the book, is that everything is information. And sometimes,
knowledge of knowledge.
Yeah. So sometimes that information comes and says, hey, you got this belief, and it's disempowering you, and it's trying to take you out. The belief that says, I should be this, or I should be able to thrive under any circumstances, and challenge that status quo and go, no, that's crap. That does not fit me. I need this. And it's my responsibility to give myself what I need. It is my responsibility to take this information and use it to empower me, and not use it to beat myself up because I'm not fitting into the status quos or the shoulds or any of this other stuff crap, not stuff.
Yeah, that's okay.
You can swear too. This is an adult podcast.
We always
go for it.
Well, we've been handed this belief system that we are supposed to do things a certain way. We were taught conformity. We were taught disempowerment. We were taught to go along with the status quo. We were taught not to look inward, where our true power is. And so this quote came to you saying, pay attention. There's something that, and it's amazing how our internal soul will talk to us in the physical world. And whether it's dreams, and we deem those dreams as selfish, or whatever is coming out, it's translating the internal to the physical so that we can understand it. So this quote jumped out at you, and your soul was like, listen, there's something here. Come on, I'm leading you to yourself. I'm leading you to the juice. Come with me, let's play. It's beautiful.
That's really affirming. Thank you. Because it was really like in my cause for applause, like I said, I saw two friends this week who really fill me up, right? And like I got home and I'm talking to my husband.
That was a weird slip.
Talking to my husband, and he's like, and he can even tell that I'm back into like, like I'm gesticulating a lot and I'm dancing around while I'm telling him the stories of my day, versus like when I haven't had those experiences for a long time. And he's like, how was your day? It's like, fine, good, whatever. Like, because I don't have that like sparkle without having those people around me. So that was also something I've been kind of sitting with last night and this morning. So
are you sitting with, it's fine to like have those sparkle when those people around you, you choose who you surround yourself with, but are you also sitting with, how do I create my own sparkle?
See, I think trying to create my own sparkle brings me back to this idea that you have to do it yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I think that has been how I've been doing things for so long. And then I judge myself for not being able to manufacture that sparkle on my own. right?
Yep.
And that's not,
Totally fair.
yeah, I think that's what's happening there.
Yeah, you've been isolating or alienating. Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, can I just say there's another universal law that you just brought up here. And that
Okay.
is one of the universal laws is that everything is energy, and energy can only be transferred or transmuted. And there's the law of gender and gestation. So we need the masculine, the feminine of the energy to create, to spark, to ignite. And part of your yin yang, part of your energy is that you need that feedback system coming to you. And so surrounding yourself with the purposeful environment, just the same. In a previous life, I used to be an interior designer.
Oh,
and
cool.
knowing how our physical environment makes us feel. You've just done that with relationships and people that spark in you, that energetic creation. This, you called this a small little thing. This is big, girl. This is really big.
That's great. Yeah, okay. Wonderful.
How do you feel?
Well, Victoria, you know how I feel. This is now too much positivity, and I'm starting to shut down again.
Accept it. Say
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you
I
and
will
accept
allow
it.
it. I will take it in. Yeah, I was even a little bit scared to share this today. I was literally gonna think like I haven't read your book, Kathy, so it's kind of cool that it relates to that.
Yeah, and again,
But-
like listeners, we don't tell each other what we're gonna say. Kathy didn't know what Shadoe was gonna say. I didn't know what Shadoe was gonna say. Shadoe doesn't know what Kathy's gonna say after this. So
True.
I mean, this is often it does turn serendipitous whenever we're sharing regrets. Like it just does. Yeah. Is there anything you want to say to finish off your regret, Shadoe?
No, just thank you. Excuse me.
That's
Thank
your
you
body
both.
telling you something. You have a frog in your throat.
Well, yeah, thank you both for some really good feedback here, because I definitely was like kind of, again, because I have this hyper independence response, I was like, oh, they're gonna say like you're not the orchid. I definitely was like when I was playing it out in my head, I was definitely imagining that you would both be like, yeah, but you're not an orchid though, so why would that apply to you? And I really am glad that neither of you took that path. So, and not that I would assume either of you would, but I definitely
No, I don't think anybody would, but that's just your fear, right? Like our darkest
absolutely
fear. That's just your like internal critic.
Yeah, so that's where I'll leave it, is that like I was scared, but I'm glad I shared it because you both accepted it with such beautiful like grace, to borrow Kathy's word from earlier. And yeah, I definitely feel a lot better, which is great because I even started today feeling pretty good. So thank you both.
Thank you for sharing, Shadoe. I always say this after every single time you share, but like you always bring something forward that this is why I love you so much. You always bring forward things. My brain doesn't work the way your brain works, and you always bring forward things that are really relatable. So I know those of you out there listening are relating to it too. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Kathy, are you ready to share your regret?
Absolutely. But to be really honest with you, I'm more excited about the unpacking that you guys are going to do afterward, because I know that the regret that I wanted to share with you, there's going to be something really magical coming out of it, because it's an old regret. You said something earlier that made me realize that it's still really powerful in my life. You were originally talking about how aging, and we need to be grateful, and immediately it popped into my head that I'm 59 years old, and I lost my mother when she was 58, and my dad was 63. Wow. And the regret I'm going to share with you is what I did when they died, and that was in 2008. So we're looking at 16 years ago, and it still haunts me. And the consequences of how I chose to handle that situation is still affecting me today. So let me give you a little bit of background. My parents, well, my mother was always my hero. My dad was my nemesis because we're identical. So him and I would be like looking each other in the mirror, and all of that crap would become bubbling up between the two of us. And I was blessed that my mother passed 7 weeks before my father, and I had those 7 weeks with my dad to heal all of that energy between us. But they had retired early to Mexico, and I think they retired in 2001. So they were in their 40s. Like, this was unheard of at that time. And so they'd had enough money that they could live for the rest of their life on the interest of what they had made, because, they'd made really good investments and stuff like that. Well, we all know where 2008 came and what it did, and it decimated their portfolio. And my mother sank into a deep depression, and she struggled. Well, they both struggled with alcoholism. And so my father was in end stage renal failure. And I know my mother realized that she could not survive without him, because her alcoholism had really stolen her soul. And so she died 7 weeks before him. And my father made me promise me, Kathy, deathbed promise, right? They had moved my elderly grandmother down to Mexico with them. And she was 94 years old. And my father said, promise me you won't move her if something happens to me. And, I just lost my mother. My father was dying. My marriage was a shambles. It was a mess. There was so much going on in my own marriage. There were things happening within my extended family where we had become estranged, and there was so much going on that my brain was fried. So when I made the deathbed promise, of course, I will step in and I will sell everything I own. I'll sell my house, my possessions. I'll move down into your home. I will resume your responsibilities. I will take over the decisions that you made, and I will make them mine. And that's what I did. And so I sold my home and every possession I had, and I moved my family, my young daughter, put her in bilingual school in Mexico, tried to salvage my marriage while taking care of my elderly grandmother, stepping into all of the decisions that my parents had made. And I lost everything.
Oh,
yeah. And I will never forget. I did plan A, B, C, D, E. I mean, I was just constantly, okay, I got to make this work. If it's to be, it's up to me. And I took on the world, and I took on the responsibilities. And I obviously had no respect for my husband, because he had allowed me to take control. He didn't want any responsibilities for anything. And so I just stepped up and you talk about hyper self independence. I could do this. I got it. And I spent all of my inheritance, and which wasn't a lot. And I spent all of my savings, and I did everything I could to make this work and create a business and a sustainability to make somebody else's life work for me. And I remember going to my grandmother and saying, I'm in trouble. I'm broke. And I said, will you come to Canada with me? Will you come back home, and I'll create a whole home environment for you in my home, and I'll make this work. And her response to me, now you gotta remember, she's 94 years old, right? Her response to me was, no, when's my dentist appointment?
wow.
And here I had come to her thinking she would understand that I was saying I'm in trouble. And oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm getting emotional, but I went back to my parents' part of the house that was now my house, and I fell to the ground. And I remember throwing my hands up in the air, and I'm not a religious person, but I threw my hands up in the air and I said, okay, God, I give up. I give up. I've done everything I can think of. I have done it all, and nothing has worked. I give up. Kind of like that song, Jesus Take the Wheel. I surrender. And within 24 hours, the right solution just appeared. The right solution where my grandmother was taken care of and it wasn't my responsibility. The right solution that took me back to Canada, where my house ended, the sale didn't go through, it fell through at the last minute. And so my house was there waiting for me, empty without a piece of possession in it, but the house was there. And so everything fell into place. And it wasn't until afterward that I realized that I had made these decisions based on what I thought a good daughter does, on taking on the responsibility of a deathbed promise, of not going with understanding that when your brain is in stress, that your prefrontal cortex has been cut off and you cannot think logically and creatively. So none of these options came to me. And so I betrayed myself. I lost everything. And it cemented a wedge between family members that I miss dearly. And sorry, I wasn't expecting the waterworks. But I had the feeling after the beginning of this conversation that we were going to probably go a little raw. I wish someone had told me, you know what? Let's think about this. Let's put some space between a major life decision. Let's see what other options there are other than giving up your identity, your life, your choices, to take on responsibilities and take on the duty of the shoulds.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because I relate to it. I made a deathbed promise to my grandmother to look after my uncle, and had a similar experience where I realized I couldn't keep the promise, right? And I love what you said about the prefrontal cortex and these sorts of things too. But before I go anywhere, do you want some feedback, or did you just want to be heard?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, no, I told you right at the beginning, I was looking forward to the feedback.
Also, just one point of are you done sharing? Because I just want to make sure that you've said everything you would like to say before we jump into feedback.
I love the way you guys honor. I love this. If only real life conversations were as edifying as the ability to honor somebody's space is what you're doing here right now. Thank you for doing that. Yes,
That's a huge compliment. Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah,
and
really, really nice.
That's really what we're trying to demonstrate, right? We're two friends, and we're trying to demonstrate how adult humans, particularly women, can have healthy conversations with each other and support each other without judgment. And what are the tools that we can do to create space for each other to do that? And it's as simple as saying, do you want my advice, or did you just want to be heard? And it's as simple as saying, did I get everything that you're trying to say? Is there anything else you want to say? And when we can start to do that in our relationships, with other women, in our romantic relationships or whatever, it really, I believe, can make a huge difference in connection. Shadoe believes that too. And that's, thank you. That's a huge compliment, because that's exactly why we started the podcast, to demonstrate this. And so that other people can hear it, and so that people don't feel alone and hear regrets. Shadoe, do you want to go first? Because I could tell you're writing some.
Yeah, actually, so I'm gonna take it to my own realm immediately. This idea of being a good daughter. I'm just curious, like, do you have other siblings or cousins that could have been there for your grandmother?
Yeah, my sister was estranged from my parents, and my dad, one of the things that my dad said to me was, I don't want her to have anything.
Wow.
She hasn't talked to us in 15 years. I want, and I said, you don't mean that. Yeah. He
Mm.
said, I do mean that. You need to promise me that. And I said, well, at least share some of the jewelry. And then he goes, no, nothing. And
Mm.
I did not keep that promise.
Right.
And I think that's great.
I did reach out to my sister and I shared everything with her. And I said, I will go against what they wanted if you will assume 50% of the responsibility of taking care of our grandmother. I will share 50% of everything. And her response was no.
Wow. Wow. That's really tough. I feel like I really, in terms of identity stuff, being a good daughter is something that I really cherish. And it's something that lately I feel like I'm kind of not doing correctly. Kind of surprisingly, just talking to more people about stuff, like being a good anything, whether it's a daughter or any other kind of identity we put on ourselves, doesn't necessarily mean doing everything that that other person wants from you. And that's been really hard for me.
The tough love piece. It's not
Yeah, this
about
idea,
filling their
like,
desires. It's
yeah,
about loving them and supporting them through what they need. I don't know if need's the right word,
it's
but
that it's also that I think because I struggle to feel good about myself sometimes, holding on to the identity of, well, I'm a good daughter gave me a little bit of esteem, but then it kind of took over some other aspects of my life. Also, I'm very curious, Kathy, are you the oldest? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Both my husband and I are the oldest children, and I know birth order stuff is kind of like a pseudoscience, but I really believe in it.
so do I. I'm a middle
Yeah.
child.
Well, for me, Shadoe, it was more than that because my parents had to get married while my mom
Okay.
was 15 years old because I was on the
Oh,
way.
wow.
And so I came into this world believing that I was a mistake and I wasn't supposed to
Oh.
be here and that I
Mm-hmm.
ruined my parents' life by
Mm-hmm.
existing. And so you want to talk about hyper independence and hyper self-serving or not self-sacrificing.
Yeah.
And all of these things were because I had this belief that my sister was the chosen one because she was I can't tell you how many
Because she
times
was wanted
she was wanted, she
or
was conceived
planned.
in marriage. Yeah,
Yeah.
she was
Yeah.
conceived in marriage. I was the mistake. And so I
Hmm.
used to say my whole life I was the experiment and they perfected everything with her. And
Hmm.
so I carried the sense of duty.
Right.
So that was that,
Yeah.
like, that was like your, sometimes I don't love the word limiting beliefs because I think like it's all beliefs, right? Like it's like
Sure.
what's going on there. One of my questions for you was, and I think you just answered it, was going to be, what was your inner voice saying that drove you to assume all this responsibility? So like your inner voice or your belief was, I have to do this to prove myself.
Not prove myself, but to earn the right to be alive.
Mm,
Oof.
Earn
yeah.
the
Oof.
right to exist. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I'm
I
not
was,
worthy.
I'm not worthy. I'm not supposed to be here. My mother, I adored and respected, and she was my hero, and I ruined her life.
Mm.
One of the last things that she said to me before she died was, Kathy, you don't understand. I could have been somebody.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch. That hurts.
That is a lot to carry.
Yeah. So even though she had this amazing life on the outside where everybody thought she had it picture perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
She died with the regret that she didn't get to be herself, fulfill her dreams. And that was my fault because I was conceived.
Right. Right. That's heartbreaking. It's interesting because like it's actually the opposite with my younger sibling, where like I don't know, it's interesting because like this idea that like, well, kids ruin your life. That's something I heard over and over and over again. And so I internalized that to be, well, if I'm the best kid ever, then I haven't ruined their life. And so now to this day, I never share when I'm struggling with my parents, ever. Not once do I tell them like, oh, I'm really sad, or I'm really this, or I'm really that, because my role as the firstborn is to prove that them having kids wasn't a mistake. And I've carried that for a really long time versus my younger brother, where it was like my mom had already had tubal ligation before my brother was born, but it didn't take. And she never, but she had me, she got her tubes tied right away. She didn't go to the follow-up appointment. And, 5 years later, I wish on a shooting star for a younger brother. And they sat me down that night and was like, like you're going to be an only child for the rest of your life. Like this will never happen for us, like blah, blah, blah. And then about 11 months later, my brother came along. And so he also carried a lot, or I don't know, I can't speak for him necessarily, but he kind of got the double barrel of he was unplanned, but he's a marvel.
Like he's a miracle child.
He's a miracle. Like if I hadn't wished on that shooting star, if I hadn't done this and that and all these things, he wouldn't be here, kind of thing. So I think like both of us carry this huge weight of like showing our parents that like, yes, kids ruin your life, but like, and they've both have since apologized for that kind of mentality. But I think I've carried it forward. Like I don't have children, I don't plan to have children, and I still believe in this idea that if I was to have children, my ability to be somebody would be taken away. I very much believe that in myself, but here I am in my late 30s and I'm still not somebody. And it's not because I don't have kids. Like, so I've really had to like
that like children take your identity.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So no, this is really, really powerful. And I'm so sorry, Kathy, that like, especially like so late in life, she was still holding on to that. That's really hard. But like you said before, she didn't have the privilege of aging. Both of my parents are in their 60s now, and I'm noticing huge changes in them, both of them, in how they approach other people, how they approach conversations. And it's like really beautiful to see. So Kathy, I'm like, you shared something so important here about being a good daughter and what that means. And again, just thank you so much. Yeah, I don't even necessarily have a question. I just, this is what's coming up for me immediately.
Thank you, Shadoe.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I just say one thing that
Yes.
I feel compelled to do?
Please.
And I don't think I'll be able to do this without crying.
That's okay.
It's okay.
That estrangement that has affected our family in so many ways is affecting me and my daughter.
Oh,
and you repeat the patterns.
And I know that where my mother did the best she could, and her mother did the best she could, and I did the best I could, we still end up hurting people.
Mm-hmm.
And we still, when we're not in alignment with ourselves and we're living this crap, and we're doing what we think we're supposed to do, we're doing what we think we should do, we're not. And I know I've probably hurt my daughter, and I've probably dishonored her because of my own beliefs and my own but I want to say right now, if there's a universe who will have her hear these words, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Thank you. And I think any daughter out there just hearing you say that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're not perfect. And as daughters, we also need to, I also have a tumultuous relationship with my mom. As daughters, we also need to, and maybe I'm saying this to your daughter or to the daughters out there like me, is to realize that our moms are human too. Mm-hmm. Our moms aren't perfect, and we have this expectation of our moms to be perfect. And as we have the privilege of aging and realizing, we realize maybe we're repeating the ancestral patterns or the family patterns, but that's the first step in awareness, but also forgiveness, right? Forgiving our moms and acknowledging that our moms aren't perfect, and we shouldn't expect our moms to be perfect. Yeah. And as moms, forgiving ourselves for expecting us to be perfect for those of you that are mothers, right? And
Mhm.
how do you form those adult relationships, I guess, once you get past childhood? And one of the things that came up for me too when you were talking is we often forget the option of processing. So we think we have to take action right away. We've made a deathbed promise. We have to do this. We make decisions really quickly. And stopping to take the time to process is different from freezing. And often we think we're in flight, or freeze. So if I don't do anything, I'm not taking action, then I'm just freeze. But if we are aware that, or if we can, I don't know if I'm going to word this the right way, but it takes courage to say, I need to process. But it's in the processing where we can ground ourselves and find the decisions that work for us, or in the processing, this is what this conversation is like. Having conversations with your friends or people you feel safe with is in the processing too, is when those aha moments come up, and then we can make decisions. And when we're in grief, and the other piece that you said, Kathy, too, is like your dad's prefrontal cortex was already gone. And the prefrontal cortex is where our sense of consequence lives. So when we're asking people to make these promises, we're not thinking about the consequence of it, because his sense of consequence was already deteriorated. It was already gone, right? The ability to process and to feel. So I want to thank you for feeling raw right here, live right now, as a demonstration to everybody that's listening, that it's okay to feel the heavy emotions, because it's actually the heavy emotions that heal us. It's not the light emotions that heal us. It's the heavy emotions that heal us. And the only one that doesn't, and everybody's heard me say this so many times, shame doesn't heal us. Shame is like a societal construct that we've invented to control people and make people feel bad, or make ourselves feel bad. But every other heavy emotion, guilt, anger, sadness, they're designed to heal us. They're designed for us to learn about ourselves. And you literally just had a healing. You just
I hope so.
realized, I need to say something to my daughter. And this is your step to start moving forward. That's it. Thank you for being so honest and raw and real. And the mother-daughter relationship is a big thing, whether you're a mother or a daughter or both. Right? Like we all want our mother's approval deep down inside, right? Like we all want our mom's approval, no matter what, like deep down inside, whether we're angry at them, whether we're estranged from them, whether we're pretending everything's fine. Like we all want that approval. And I'm not a mom, but I can only assume as a mother, you want your daughter's approval too. I'm sure it goes both ways. And also the idea of forgiveness is about yourself, in my opinion, right? Like sometimes we can forgive another person without forgiving ourselves. You need to make sure you're forgiving yourself. And by that, I mean, I forgive myself for putting myself in that situation. I forgive myself for the way that I reacted in that situation. I forgive myself for how I felt in that situation, and I'm going to let that go, and I'm going to release that. And sometimes that's the only forgiveness you may get. Sometimes you're not going to be able to forgive the other person, or the other person isn't going to create a space for you to forgive them. You're not going to get that relief, but you can get that relief by forgiving yourself. And that can be a really powerful place to start as well. Right? Like your parents weren't in the place to be able to offer you the ability to maybe forgive them, but you can forgive yourself.
Yeah, I believe that forgiveness is cutting the ties to wishing it was different, or
Yes.
or it's just cutting the negativity from it and taking the good part from it and letting the rest of it go. Not that someone should have done things differently, or you should not have experienced that, or it was wrong, or whatever judgments are. It's just about cutting it and letting it go.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Go ahead, Shadoe.
I was just going to say, I really am appreciative of of the tears, because so this is something I've been kind of, again, rustling around in my brain lately, where like we all love laughing, but tears are also that yin and yang thing you were talking about earlier. But like we are so scared to cry in front of others, but we want to share laughing, or like we want to like, and to me, they're just reactions. They're just physiological reactions to stimuli. And with one, we're like, oh, that one has to be experienced by ourselves. But then with the other side, that
Oh,
gets
back to
experienced
hyper
with everybody.
independence.
Right. And I just think like and maybe it's because like I went to a concert this summer with my dad and I cried a lot at the concert. And I don't cry in front of my dad. It's not something it's something I really try not to do. And after the concert, he even said like, I'm sorry that you got upset at the concert. And I had to correct him that I wasn't upset. I was moved. I was moved to tears. I wasn't upset. I was having the time of my life. But to him, he saw tears and immediately went, she's not having a good time. I was having the best time. So I think again, like honoring when the tears are coming, like let them come.
Yeah. Well, we live in a world of polarity where for happiness and laughter, there has to be sadness. We can't cut off half of an experience to only experience and cherry pick life.
Yes. Yeah. I also want to add, I like crying. Like
Yeah, me
Shadoe,
too.
like you're saying, like Shadoe, you're saying, like we love laughing, but we actually get more of a release from the cry. Like think about all the times you cry and then afterwards you're like, right? Like, you're like, I feel better. Like if it's a big sobbing cry or if it's just, I mean, okay. I'm a Christmas person. That's the like the holiday that I celebrate. Like, come on, Christmas commercials, right? Bring them on. Like, who doesn't cry at the Christmas commercials every year, right? Like, my mom, I don't know if she listens to podcasts or not, but there was this one commercial. You guys tell me if you remember. There's this one commercial, like, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago. And it was like a daughter and a dad, and she's getting in the car and it's nighttime and it's snowing and it's Christmas time, and he hands her a present. This must have been 20 years ago. He hands her a present and she takes it and she kind of doesn't hug him goodbye, and she gets in the car and she puts the present on the passenger side seat, and she's driving. There's obviously tension between them. And I'm going to cry right now. And whenever I describe this commercial to my mom cries too, because my mom and I, every time we saw it, we just start bawling. And then ring. And then she opens it. She's already driving away, and it's her dad. And he's like, it's a cell phone. He bought her a cell phone. And it's like, and he's like, I just want to tell you I love you. And she's like, I love you too, Dad. Right? Like, it's just like, that's a good cry. Like my mom and I would share that experience every time the commercial came on. Right? Like crying is amazing. Good, and it's cathartic, and it's a form of letting go. And so this has been such a wonderful experience, Kathy. I cannot say how much I appreciate you sharing today. And Shadoe, I'm speaking for you too. Shadoe does too. We've
absolutely.
learned so much. So I just want to ask you if there's any closing thoughts you want to say about your regret. And also, I mean, you are an incredible wealth of knowledge. I am halfway through reading your book and I've already highlighted so many things. We're going to put this all in the notes to let our listeners know where they can grab your book, where they can follow you on socials. And if there's any closing words that you want to say, the microphone is yours.
First of all, thank you. Thank you for this space, this opportunity. I made a decision when I wrote the book. I wrote the book right after I healed myself from my complete and total breakdown. And so my breakdown came from living with the masks and living with the shoulds and pretending that everything was okay and not letting anyone know the turmoil that I was going through. And so I swore I would never live like that again. And so I lead with vulnerability. I lead with that because that's where I can protect my own sanity. And so I thank you for the space to share but I refuse to go back into the box of I'm okay. Yeah, you got it,
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I lived like that for 50 some odd years, and it made me ill. It brought on fibromyalgia and osteoarthritis and a complete total nervous breakdown, and it had me suicidal, and all of these things that thought it's damaging. It's crap. And so if this conversation in so many different ways, between Shadoe, you sharing how the universe was bringing you a piece of self-awareness, and Victoria, we didn't get a chance to talk about yours. This conversation has gone in so many different directions, and I wish we had more time, but I just want everyone to know that everything matters. Everything matters. Even the stuff, or especially the stuff we don't want or we don't like or whatever, it all matters. And so when you talk about Shadoe, bloom where you are, take what it is going to get you, because the whole purpose of my book and the whole purpose of what I do with my clients is it empowering or is it disempowering? And if it's disempowering, use the law of relativity, use the law of polarity, turn it around and use it so it's empowering, however that comes out.
You're incredible, Kathy. Thank you so much. I can't agree with you more. I can't agree with you more. And if anybody wants to learn more about Kathy, we will put everything in the podcast notes. And again, I can't recommend her book enough, Unlearn the Crap. It's amazing. I'm only halfway through, but it's really an incredible book. And I encourage people to get that book and learn more about Kathy. And thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll lead into our 3 breaths now. Come on to the front edge of your seat, everybody. Put your feet flat on the floor if it is safe for you to do so. If you're driving, please don't put your feet flat on the floor. And if you want, you can put your hand on your heart. And you can close your eyes again if it is safe for you to do so. And the reason we do these 3 breaths is just so that we can connect into ourselves and be kind to ourselves. So taking a big breath in and a long exhale out, saying to yourself, I'm choosing to believe that I am worthy just because I am. And on this next breath, big breath in, and a long exhale out. I'm committing to be kind to myself in the way that I talk to myself each and every day. And on this last breath, taking a big breath in and a very long exhale out. I'm committing to finding small moments of joy and connection in the everyday ordinary in my life, so that I can heal and be connected. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We appreciate you so much, and we will see ya, hear ya, be with ya in the next one.
Yay.
We look forward to it.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
This episode of Let's Relieve Regret was produced by Shadoe Ball and Victoria Muir-Bercia.
Editing by me, Victoria Muir-Bercia.
We are an independent podcast supported by you, our listeners.
If you think this podcast sends a valuable message, you had an aha moment, or learned something new about yourself, help us realize our goal of reaching as many listeners as possible.
We encourage you to take action and support us right now by choosing one of the following options.
You can easily support us by
following us on Instagram at relieve.regret.
Tell 2 friends.
Leave a 5-star review on whatever app you're listening to us on.
Leave a tip at coffee.com/Let's Relieve Regret podcast. That's ko-fi.com/Let's Relieve Regret podcast.
Join our conversations in the Facebook group, Let's Relieve Regret Podcast.
Find all this information, all the links, and more in the podcast notes. Okay, bye.
Bye.